I was in Corblock's Headless Hangout when I thought, why not become a fortune teller? So I dressed for the part and started my business. And before I knew it, I had my first customer. He wanted me to tell him when he was gonna die, but I told him he'd have to tell me a knock-knock joke first because I don't do that shit for free. But the guy refused. And then ran away. The knock-knock joke must have been out of his budget. I went straight back to advertising and got a second customer right away. But he only had a dark humor joke, so I let it slide. And then he tried to scam me, and I was like, dude, no, payment first. So he asked me, like, what makes apples and orphans different? And it's pretty obvious. One's a fruit, one's a child. But he said apples get Yes. Okay. Anyways, I told him to give me a category of what he wanted to know. But out of all things that this dude could have chosen, he chose to know when his brother was gonna die, and I was like, really? Okay. Obviously, I wasn't a real fortune teller, so I had to play the part. Finally, I had a solution and I knew exactly what to say. I told him that he would die whenever God chose for him to die, but he wanted to know what year, so I was like 2011, hoping he wouldn't realize that it's 2021, but he did. But then I had to think of something else, and I remembered typically humans only live to be 100 if they're lucky. So that's what I said, but apparently it wasn't good enough for him because he said he wanted his friggin' payment back. I told him that I just needed to think harder, but then I started panicking and I told him his brother was gonna die in the span of 3 seconds, and then I said he was dead. But instead of being upset, this dude got excited and started singing the dark and twisted off-brand version of Happy Birthday. Then he said that he couldn't hear his brother from the other room anymore, and I started getting really freaked out, so I ran away and started my business somewhere else. And right away, I got another customer. He told me to guess his past, and I was like, that'll be one knock-knock joke. But then he said no, and demanded that I guess his past, and I was like, but knock-knock joke? And he said no. I told him that knock-knock jokes are like fuel for my brain, and they're the only way I can get my fortunes. He finally gave in and said knock-knock, and I was like, who's there? And then he said something about a shark, and I was like, oh wow, I've never heard this joke before. But then once he got to the punchline, I realized that the reason I've never heard it is because it sucks. After that, I asked him what he wanted me to read about his past, and he said he wanted me to tell him what he's done. Obviously, I didn't have a clue what this dude's past was like, so I just tried flattering him by saying how handsome he used to be. I took a wild guess and said that he even bought lunches for homeless people. Then he said that none of that had actually happened, and I was like, oh shit, he's onto me, but I didn't say anything about it because then he'd cancel me. That's when he told me that he had committed crime, and I was like, what did you do? He responded with speed and murder. I informed him that everyone goes a few miles over the speed limit sometimes, and that it's not unusual to kill a few flies in your lifetime. He told me he was going 256 in a 60, which is obviously a typo. I asked him what he murdered and if it was a cockroach, and he responded with father and mother. I was like, damn, you killed the cockroach's father and mother too? But then he corrected me saying it was his father and mother and that he demolished them, and I was like, shit, you part of a cockroach family? Then he got confused and angry and started yelling at me, which got me confused, so I just responded with yes. That's when things got really awkward and he just ran away. That was my first ever experience being a Roblox fortune teller. Like for part 2.